Ursula Burns has taken the time to sit with us and have a conversation. As most of you I'm sure know, Ursula rose through the ranks at Xerox. She became the first Black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company, retiring in 2017 from that company. And to date, she remains the only Black woman to have led a Fortune 500 company, unfortunately. Ursula is now chair at VEON, and she is in New York, sheltering at home like we all are, and I'm just delighted. Ursula, how are you? Thank you.
I am fine, and I am actually sheltering at home. Thank you for actually reaching out and having me break my normal cadence, which is walking around my apartment on conference calls or conference videos. Now there are no conference calls, not a lot of conference calls, conference videos. It's good to be able to talk to you and to whoever listens. It's getting kind of lonely here.
Yeah, I know you're there alone. Your daughter is nearby and your son is 3,000 miles away, but I'm sure stays close on video. Just to start, I know that your world, VEON was based in London. You spent a lot of time on the road, in the air, in the sky, and this has obviously changed your life dramatically. Can you kind of walk us through what that change has looked like and how it feels to you?
Yeah, so it has this situation that we're in, this sheltering in place, but also the ominousness of the discourse that we're having on a global basis, this kind of like unseen, unfelt kind of monster out there does a lot on my psyche. I got to believe that it does a lot on everybody else's psyche as well. So I spend the vast majority of my time when I was in the last couple of years at Xerox, and then for sure the last 3 years, 3 years at VEON, the vast majority of my time on an airplane. My headquarters is in Amsterdam. I live in London. That's where I officially live. And so sitting in a place, this sounds ridiculous, but sitting in a place for more than 3 days or 4 days in a row is literally foreign to me. I have not done that for 5 years. I'm very used to not sitting in a place. My life is very comfortable in that space. I complain about it all the time, but that's the way I lived. Even when my husband was alive, as you know, he died last January, a little bit more than a year ago. Even when, literally, I traveled like a crazy person. I had 3 different places to live. I spent a lot of time in Russia, the Ukraine, Pakistan, all these countries that are not standard, Moscow, and planes. So I would always say, wouldn't it be great to be at home? And so the other day, 5.5 or 6 weeks ago, my daughter called me. I was in the Ukraine. I was in Kiev, I'm sure. And she called me, it was the middle of the night, and she said to me, Trump, because we don't always call him president.
I never call him president. So
we can't bring ourselves to say it. Is closing the borders from Europe to the US. I said, what do you mean? She said, no, it's like middle of the night. She said, so you better get home. I said, well, I'm going home. Meaning that the next morning I was supposed to be flying to Amsterdam and then Amsterdam to the UK over the weekend. She says, no, I mean home, close to the family. And I said, yeah. So I literally got off the phone. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, my time, whatever time it was, US time. And then I started to think about what she said and turned on the news or looked at whatever the video feeds I had. And yeah, he was going to close it on that Friday, and he was going to close, but he was not closing flights out of London.
Right.
My thought was, doesn't he know that London is like right next door, all the people? But anyway, that was a different point. And I called my admin middle of the night and said, book me on the first flight available. I had also called Delta, and I want to get from Amsterdam to London, pick up stuff, and then London to the United States. So I got here that Friday, the Friday of the shutdown, and I've been here since then. And one of the things that you realize is that options are what keep you going. Your real life keeps you going, but options. So in the past, if I lived by myself for a long time, married, but I was traveling all the time. I'm very used to being in my house alone. I am very used to conferencing or calling my kids. I mean, my son lives in California. My daughter lives down lower part of Manhattan. I don't see her every day by any stretch, even my husband. But when you can't do it, when it goes from, I'll get down there and see, to the point where literally you can't do it, your psyche changes. And it becomes significantly more desirous to do it than it even was before. So I miss them, even though I talk to them more now than I did before. That's one. And the other is that you realize how much time you actually have on your hands if you manage your life a little differently. You know, how much time you have to sleep, to exercise, to read, to watch, to write, to whatever you do. And both of these things have been really surprising to me. One is that, like I said, I live alone generally, so it's not surprising, but now it feels different. And it impacts me therefore differently because I don't have the option to go if I wanted to go. And the second is that you realize that when you have no commuting, there's nothing. You don't go shopping. I mean, nothing, literally, that you have 24 hours in a day that you have to fill. And you have a couple of choices. This is what I did early. You can waste it. No problem wasting it. I mean, we deserve a little bit of wasting it. You can waste it, or you can try to do things that you always said, that I always said, my God, I would do more if I had time. I would do more if I would do that if I had time. I'd exercise more if I had time. I would read more if I had time. I would sleep more. This was a big thing for me. If I had time, I would cook different. I would eat differently if I had time, right? And so all of these things that were excuses that time was the excuse for, that I realized that, after a couple of days of it being kind of novel, now we're into like week 6, I've cooking, reading, writing, all of that stuff has been added in because one is because my mental health needs it, but also because this is an opportunity. Every crisis, you can't waste, as the person always says, don't waste a good crisis. This is a good crisis, don't waste it. Yeah. So it's different. It's different. And I also realize I'm in a, unbelievably gracious place. I have a great apartment. It's huge. It's airy and light. You could see it. It's just, wonderful windows, doormen, etc. So I am living in a place that I can go from room to room if I get bored with a space. I also realize that this message that people are going to listen to, a lot of them don't have this optionality, right? But they have to figure out a way in their mind to find this place that they can use time more to their advantage than they ever did before, because this is the thing that they have now, the thing that they have more than before.
You mentioned where you live now, but the reality is you grew up in a housing project. You know what it is to live in a very different type of apartment and a very different type of life. And I know we were talking the other day, and you talked about one of the frustrations and possibly gifts in all this is our new view of those who in the past have been marginalized, people who are living the way you and your family did when you were a child. Can you talk about that and what to you has been most frustrating about all of this and perhaps is becoming most hopeful?
I think one of the things that's interesting, and I'm going to separate this conversation into two big groups. One is I'm going to talk about this from the view of the federal government. And my view of the federal government today is the Democratic and Republican parties, largely the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party subtext, and the President of the United States. That's one view. And then the other view, and that whole cohort of people, right? There's a thinking there. And then there's another view, it's just us. Every day we get up, we walk down the streets, we do our thing. Some of us have more money to do it than others, etc. When I was growing up, I was one of the people who would, in this circumstance, literally, we would be in dire straits. We were in bad straits before. But literally, my mother made enough money to feed us by cleaning offices, taking care of other people's children. She would have zero disposable income. My mother this would be a disaster for her. She would literally not be able to make ends meet. I mean, she could just barely do it, right? She was a welfare mother. We got food aid through food stamps. We got our rent was supported through some federal thing, and then everything else beyond that, books.
And she was an immigrant, and she was a Panamanian immigrant, right?
She was an immigrant. She was an immigrant from another country. She was fairly well educated. She had a high school diploma, and she went to college here to get credits to get an associate's degree. She was not, my mother was not ignorant by any stretch of the imagination, spoke 2 languages perfectly, English and Spanish, but she just never fit into the societal ladder. So she was at the bottom end, and her whole goal and mission was to make us fit in. And so she worked towards that. And she literally worked her fingers to the bone to enable us to have options, right? So that's the life that we were, and if we were there today, my mother would be panic stricken today. And I can just imagine, so I walk every day 4 miles, mask, gloves, all kinds of stuff on, 4 miles a day, sometimes longer. And I get, I do the social distancing. I do all of the stuff that you're supposed to do, but I get out and I see people on the street and I give them money. And literally just a friend of mine is like, what are you doing? You just realize the margin of error these people have in their lives. That's a large number of the people today. The margin of error they had was they were riding that bike, delivering the food for us. The margin of error, they were washing the dishes. The margin of error, they were cleaning our houses, doing our nails, right? They're all wiped out. And the desperation that must exist in these people today it just brings me to tears. Yeah. So the thing that I realize here is that we owe all of these people. Now we get out and we clap for them. The doctors, the nurses, those are the well-paid people. But the guy who moves the bed, who moves the beds around, right? The security guy from the small security company that, you realize that guy probably gets paid $15 an hour or whatever the minimum wage is.
Who cleans the hospital after everybody goes away. Yeah.
Literally, we cannot, the great thing about this is we realize that the guy who delivers our food is someone we should appreciate. And they have a chance, they should have a chance to not have to deliver food, have their children not have to deliver food. We should have a structure that allows them to move up, right? They can't be desperate. We can't be at the point where we're desperate before we realize that these people they have mothers and fathers, and they're humans. And one of the things that I think that's great about this time is that we're starting to see more and more, really recognize these people. We recognize when I go, right, you see them today. Yeah. When I go into the store to buy at Whole Foods, I literally say, and everybody else is saying the same thing, thank you for being, really, these guys are risking their goddamn lives with probably not the greatest healthcare in the world to make sure that I can go upstairs and cook my sea bass or whatever the heck I'm eating. And I think that forget the politicians for now. Forget them for now. Because I think that's a bigger problem. We as just regular citizens, I don't give a hoot what party you're in, we have to realize that that everybody in this city, countries that, towns that you're in, cities that you're in, states that you're in, that they all deserve a chance and that they generally work very hard, and we have to support them. We have to support their ability to have a reasonable life and to have their children have an even better life than they have. And this is not about middle class. This is literally, I'm talking about the guys who collect the garbage around here. It's just, you realize that, my goodness gracious, what would happen if they all went home? Right? The reason why we can shelter in place is because somebody is out there checking me out when I go in and I can stay in for a week, right? What would happen? Our safety is more important than their absolute safety, right? So they've been able to sacrifice that for us. We owe it to these people to re-engage, right? To re-engage and not be so insular, so dismissive, so mean to them. We have to support them. And, living wage for a nurse and a living wage for the Walmart worker, living wage for the target a living wage for all of them, because we can no longer, I think we've been shocked into place here. Right? If they all left, this is something that we knew, right? Black people knew this forever, right? If the slaves all went, the country would go down, right? Unfortunately, we couldn't organize well enough to not have that happen. But now I think what we have is a chance to reset some. We can't reset everything. I understand how things work. It takes a long time. The structures aren't there. It's not enough money. I get it. But we should actually have a plan, a more structured plan to backstop just about every citizen in this country to make sure that they have at least what they need to live.
Yeah. Talk to me about what you think that looks like. I know that you're on the board of the Ford Foundation now, where the mission is extremely clear and the leadership is outstanding. But, I think one of the issues with a crisis like this, with the magnitude, the scale of this, is that people, individuals, feel powerless, right? You're stuck at home, you have these restrictions, you're worried about your bottom line, you're worried about your kids, you're caregiving a parent or a partner. There is a sense of powerlessness and uncertainty. The election is looming in this country. Tell me what you think the individual, the average person can do to help enact some of the changes and spark some of the movement that needs to happen.
Yeah, so I'm going to connect a couple of things that you talked about. One is the back part of the question about powerlessness, and the problem is massive, and how in the hell can I help it? And then the Ford Foundation at the beginning part of it. And I'll start with the Ford Foundation. One of the things that I love about, first of all, I'm honored. I mean, this is like, I'm on the board of Nestle, I'm on the board of ExxonMobil, I'm on the board of Uber, I'm on the board of my company, I've been on the board of American Express, all great, unbelievably, like, wow, kind of things. There were a couple of
especially for a Black woman, Ursula. Let's be real. Super wow.
Anyone would say, yeah, you're on the board of American Express, you're on the board of ExxonMobil, not bad. I mean, yeah. But the one that is the most amazing to me, because of how hard the problem is and how persistent the pursuit of a solution has been and how clear it's been, is the Ford Foundation. And there's two others that I'm going to talk about, but not on social justice. Ford, the thing I love about Ford is that we have what seems like an impossible mission to eradicate inequality. But with that's like, really? How do you do that? Right? The world literally from the beginning of time, right? We have the pyramids because they were slaves and they were, you name it, right? There's always been this people taking unbelievable advantage of other people for the betterment of the individual, that individual. I'm not for equality. Equality doesn't mean everybody gets the same thing. Everybody has the same start. Everybody has the same opportunities to engage, right? And the thing that I love about the Ford Foundation, and the reason why I'm so passionate about it, is that it keeps reminding me that it's my responsibility, it's our responsibility in the world to serve others such that to the point where we give them a fair start and a fair foundation. So, and I always say this whenever I talk, and when we were speaking earlier, safety is something that you shouldn't wake up in the morning and have to worry first about not being killed before you have to eat, right? And we have people in the world literally who live this way. They dodge bullets. They are under unbelievably oppressive regimes that they fear for their lives. You shouldn't wake up every day and say, I have no source of water or food. I have to get that before I can even think about, I have absolutely no source for basic medicine, no source, no hope of getting an education or anything that can enrich myself. It doesn't even have to be an education the way we define it. Anything that can enrich. The vast majority of people in the world, the larger majority of people in the world live under these circumstances. And for some reason, we believe that because we have, shelter at home, and we only earn $30,000, not $100,000, whatever the hell it is, that we have it the worst. I say the way that we did it is the way my mother taught me to do it, the way she did it. My mother literally struggled every single day, and we fed more. She literally, her house was open. Her wallet was open for people who had less than us. And her time was definitely open. And I just think that we have to not look at the problem as this big problem. Let's look at the next person that you meet. The people, who do you engage that you can make their lives better? And if you can do that systematically, if you can engage in an educational institution like your kid local school, if you can go to a soup kitchen. My son just told me him and his fiance just did this, and it was one of the best things that they just did during this virus. Because they did it before, they kind of didn't do it, then they went back and said, yeah, simple acts to help people, to encourage other people, also encourages you. If the problems are so big that we individuals, 7 billion of us, can't do a little for the one below us, then God help the whole civilization. And it clearly isn't that way. It clearly isn't that way. Our responsibility is absolutely to do the best we can. And if all you can do is give $1, I say this all the time to obviously I'm a fairly affluent person, and I have all of my friends are my old sisters. You know, my black friends from Rochester, my sisters meaning, you know, the large sisters, and then my family. And I make significantly more money than them. And they would say, well, I can't give money. I said, no, you absolutely you can. How much? $1. Literally, because if everybody gave $1, the world would change, right? If everybody gave 10 minutes, the world would change. So I think that's one of the things that Ford teaches me, that we all have a role to play to make the guy who is one step behind us a little bit, their path a little bit easier. And if we just did that each of us, it would be better, even if it's just a smile, even if it can't be monetary, right? Even if it can't be monetary, even though I think everybody can do something monetary, even if 50 cents, $1, I say this all the time, give it to the person who's out there. And people say, well, they're going to drink with it. I said, if that's what they need today, then okay. You know, I would prefer not be that. But so I think what I think is that we are in a place where we have narrowed the measurements for success. We have narrowed the way that we can help to a small set of definitions that were not the way it was when I was growing up. There's a great book that Tom Brokaw always mentions, and it's called The Greatest Generation.
Yeah.
And I read this a long time ago, and I haven't read it recently. And this book, when I read it a while ago, was about this. A whole generation of people, Americans, but it was, you know, who literally had nothing. You know, they gave their lives, they gave their intellect, they gave their money, some of them, to actually make the world a better place. And I think that we've forgotten about that. We think now the only way that you're measured if you're good is if you make millions of dollars and you can give away millions of dollars, right? What's the use of my $10 when whoever the heck it is gave away $1 billion? It helps. There's a great guy named Freeman Herbowski who runs University of Maryland, Baltimore College. I think you know him. Mm-hmm. And he wrote this great book, Raising Great Black Boys, and two books, Raising Great Black Girls. I think I have the title right. Read them a long time ago when my kids were younger. And he uses an example of if you save a penny every day, and then you save a penny, and then the next day 2 pennies, and the next day 3 pennies, that, you know, before you know it, you'll have hundreds of thousands of dollars with this little thing, and do some. And that's what we have to do. If you give a penny every day, we have to build from this. Small makes big, and small actions make big actions. Yeah. That's one. The second thing I'll just say, and then I'm going to stop ranting, is for some reason we've gotten into this belief. I don't believe this. I'm so passionate about this, and it annoys me beyond belief that we have no control over things. I mean, we have control over our own lives, one, the choices we make, how we interact, how hard we want to try. Even if we are not rich and we are living in bad times, you can improve yourself. We have control over certain things, and we have to speak up. We are going to elect a president in a little while. I gotta tell you, I plead that I don't care what happens between now and November. One thing that I want you to listen to: go and vote. How in the world can we leave? Think about what we're living under right now. You know, I don't even want to get into what I heard this morning. I try not to listen to the news, or else I would jump out my windows. I'm on the 22nd floor. Jumping out the windows would be to my death. About, you know, Lysol. We are a real country. We have real people. We are smart. We are generally caring. We make big mistakes. I mean, we screw it up. Slavery, you know, there's all kinds of things that we mess up. we generally have this feeling that we can actually learn and go on. We're at a really, really nerve-wracking time right now because we are dumbing down this whole process to the point where I can't even listen to it anymore. And I'm not really sure what the motivation is.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. Like, God, there are people out here who don't have anything. They have nothing. So taking the little bit that they have away from them can't be something that makes you joyous. And I see some of these politicians. I'm like, you mean to tell me that if you can get somebody into college, we're going to take away Pell Grants, we're going to take away this, we're going to take away health care. Why? Literally, just, they're not going to affect you at all. There's no reason to be so mean, right? To be so niggardly about it. There's no need for it. So I'm not really sure what's happened in the last couple of years, but we've kind of slipped into this. No one is going to ever jump the line in front of me. I would prefer that literally that person die, that we take away their rights, just so that they don't jump the line. And I don't know, I mean, I have enough, maybe they need to be in front of the line right now for the whatever it is. So I think we're at a really important time. And I think we can use this coronavirus lockdown and the effects of how we see leadership, of how we see other people's value, to actually do a reset. And if we just let it go back to the way it was before, I think that we're going to waste. We have an amazing opportunity to improve the world.
Yeah.
At least America. I think the world as well.
I know you care about voting. You mentioned that. I know you also care a lot about the census. And what are some of the other ways that you think people can raise their voices and understand that they do have control over a bit more than they may realize?
So there's two near term that and I was going to say them again. One is they're asking you to fill out a form right now to indicate the fact that you exist and that you use and need services. You pay taxes today or hopefully at some point in the future. And I've run into people who say that they're filling out the census. I'm like, are you crazy? So if you're not going to fill out the census, I say just accept, stop complaining. Don't say anything. I don't want to hear anything. Same thing with voting. I cannot believe that we get 20% of the population who vote, particularly in affected neighborhoods like us, Black and brown people, women. Every one of us, we should be driving each one of us and we should literally be stuffing the ballot. Literally, legally, everybody who has the right to vote, and we should watch out for all these voter suppression things. Why do you think that they're suppressing? A nation that voting is the big deal, right? We're a free nation. We actually have people who actually work against the right. Why? Because the people who have power want to keep it. They don't want the other guys to get it. So voting and filling out the census doesn't happen every year, but it's happening now. Do it. The second is voting. It's more than a responsibility. It's like a religious thing. It's kind of like an anointment. You got to do it. It's part of who you are. And I don't particularly care who you vote for, but I do know who will vote for. You should do it. And if you don't do it, then stop complaining. That's the thing. The third is that we have voices, right? We literally local voices. I've been known, I always speak up. Always speak up. What's the venue? Who the hell knows? The town hall meeting, screaming on the corner. I don't writing something down, preaching to your small circle. If you have to try to get information, not from the curated sources of the mass media controlled company. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? You can find out only things that you want to find out. Take a little bit of responsibility and this time that you have and read a little bit more broadly, and then literally start to educate yourself and others around you and start to enact however you can. I'm really interested in science, technology, engineering, and math education. So I'm in a whole bunch of activities around that. I really love the arts. So engage yourself. It doesn't have to be something that's so broad like voting. It's just your neighborhood. And another thing I always say, schools. These schools, particularly the schools that our kids go to, my kid went to a private, both my kids went to private, but the neighborhood school, they should know who the heck you are. They may not want to see you, but just knocking, anything I can do, books that you need, and tutoring afterwards. If that's your thing, if you have a connection then do that. That's where I started. My community service was all in education. I was really good at math, and I could help kids in school. I was in upstate New York. It was really easy, not a problem. You can go help them. My husband as well. And so I just say, reach out. And it's not about, we're not going to solve the problems of the United States and the problems of the world by sitting in our living rooms and being dumb. That's the other thing, and being dumb and literally being spiteful and mean. We can have a good life and have other people have good lives as well. I mean, I don't think that the two are mutually exclusive.
A lot of what you're talking about is, you know, personal accountability and just personal leadership, wherever you are in your life, whatever your community, whatever you're standing, you know, stepping up to work those leadership muscles and do what you can, right? But as you look around now, we have a leadership issue in this country and globally.
Yep.
Whatever your political leanings, there is a void that got us to this point. Where do you see leaders and leadership being exemplified that gives you hope? And that you think everyone can sort of take lessons from, so we can drill down on how to make the best of this time and not sink into, as you say, you know, wasting a crisis?
I think that the examples that I see, they're individual business and government leader examples that are, thank goodness, right? The strength comes out, and I'll start with businesses, right? So there's a lot of discourse, negative discourse towards businesses today, before this, and definitely before this, and still through this. And I think that we are seeing companies step up and reposition themselves a little bit. And so all these ads and commercials that we see, you know, exalting the praise for workers is, I would say, 10%, 20% propaganda, and 80% businesses realizing, guess what? This is really true. And I think we're seeing a reset and a strengthening of the worker. This is one of the things that I think that the virus is going to help, particularly American workers. Right? I'm not talking about unionization. I'm not really a big fan of that structure as the only solution, but literally workers have to have a voice. And I think that we're seeing in business now that there's going to be a bigger voice for workers. They're saying it already, and it's going to continue. So I think businesses are starting to reorient themselves to listen a little bit more. You saw this with the Amazon workers, and you see this with the Walmart workers that says, wait a minute now, I need health mask. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to slow. And people starting to actually be more collaborative in working with workers, and businesses actually thinking about, instead of me firing a whole bunch of people, everybody take a pay cut, because having people work is more important than not, or collect, massive amount of collections to support businesses that are probably going to go, that even with the help may go out of business, but at least softening the blow. So business is one place that we're starting to see some strengthening. The second place is in politics, and I will talk to people who I very rarely praise politicians. Not because I don't like them, but because it's generally short-lived. Mario Cuomo is, during this, a superstar. I got to tell you, I cannot believe how unselfish, clear, collaborative, and forceful, and factual this guy. It's like, and they've gotten out of it now. They keep the reporters throwing opportunities for him to bash somebody, bash the president. And he's like, this is not the point. We're on a different topic right now. The topic is, I have, what is that? How many people are in New York? 11 million, 18, whatever the hell, people who can get sick. We just have to fix this problem, and all the rest of the stuff is kind of not just clear. Collaborative, forceful, makes a decision, fact-based. I am a massive fan, And I was a partial fan before. So I got to tell you, thank goodness for New Yorkers to have Mario Cuomo, because this is not an easy city at all to govern, and he's been doing a good job. And I'm sure that there are governors around as well. I just happened to see this one because I happen to be here. He's amazing. There's some other leaders that are business/political leaders. One of the persons who always impresses me, and he's coming up as well in this time, is Mike Bloomberg, who I just got through reading his book. And the reason why I started reading it was because of his, he's helping in this data tracking thing. And I'm like, why, this guy, he could just sit down and relax. But he doesn't shy away from problems. And he knows that some of these problems are going to actually cause him problems personally. So him, some Black leaders as well. We have a consortium, Bill Lewis, Darren Walker, Ken Chenault, a whole bunch of them who just come together and say, we need to do X, they need to do X, they need to do Y, and they kind of rally the people around. So there are people who are standing up as well. And then there are individuals, and I will say no names, but every day these doctors and nurses, and I know two very well, who literally don't have to do what they're doing. They literally have enough money to go home. And the risk is huge. And these guys are working 12, 18 hours a day in places it's not even their hospital. I mean, literally, one of them comes from the middle of across the country to here. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they need the help. And so there are, famous Andrew Cuomo, I keep calling him Mario, little Mario, Andrew Cuomo, to, Mike Bloomberg, to business leaders that we all know, to people that you won't know the names, who are stepping up and stepping out. And then to the last group is all of us. I walk every day. I do it via the guidelines. And I can tell you, I can walk up and down New York City and run into probably, in the entire walk, 30 people. So everybody in this city, the vast majority of people in the city, guess what they're doing? They're in their houses.
Right.
It's just, think about this.
But what are you thinking about these people who the governors are now talking about opening up right now and next week?
My mother would always say, you can always find ignorance, and that she had a better way of saying it, and you shouldn't focus on the ignorance, because if you focus on the ignorance, then the ignorance gets a bigger voice than this is ignorance. There's nothing else to say. It's ignorance. It's ignorance and it's selfishness. And I'm sorry, I do understand it's not comfortable. I hate the idea of having to be inside all day, but think about what we just went through. Think about what we're going through. We're going through. Thousands of Americans are dying every day. Thousands. And people are like, well, it's really inconvenient that I get it. And to keep more than these thousands that are dying, we have people who are spending 16, 18 hours a day in hospitals. And people are saying, I want to open it up because it's really hard. I get it. If there was a better way to do it, let's figure out a better way to do it. But to sit here and say, we don't have a better way, we're just going to take the risk. This is why my mother would, she would say to me all the time, God doesn't like ugly. So some of the things I think I can't say, right? Because but I will say one, I would put a little note on the shirt and it would say, I was one of the fools who walked out when they said lockdown. So when they go to the hospital, we say to them, you stay out, because you can't take the bed of a person who did all that they need to, somebody who's literally near death, who needs to be intubated, who needs a ventilator, because you decided that, I just don't really like this. What? Yeah. I just don't get it. If we have a better way to solve this, it's a pandemic. This is not like a voluntary anything, really. We have to just kind of do what the experts say, the experts. Not the people who say drink Lysol, even though or wash your mouth with Lysol. That's not. Literally, we have medical experts who tell us what to do. This is one where you shut up and follow. follow directions, because this is not a joke. People are dying. People are risking their lives to save them. We know that literally one person, 5 people can start the whole thing all over again. And we have to lay low and have control until we get a vaccine or some other immunity. We have to kind of be very careful about our approach. This is only a short amount of time. We'll be alive for 70, 80, 90 years if we play it well.
Yeah.
So why would you risk this? And I just call it ignorance. And I would let the states do their thing. I wish we could ban them, you know, put a Band-Aid around them and to say, you stay in your state, don't come out to my states. Because I think it's unfair. It's unfair, and it's getting too much noise, too much, you know, what is it, amplification, because it's just not logical. It really is not logical, and it's not right, and it's definitely not fair to the rest of the people, the risk that is created.
You've been in a transition, and you know, it's a bit ongoing professionally. How have these last 5 weeks, you talk about this reset, have they enabled you or caused you to reset in any sense how you see your role going forward coming out of this?
Yeah, and I'm in the middle of this. One of the things that, it's a very good and astute question, right? Because one of the things that happens when you have to do a sudden change, like, you know, you're doing X, Y, Z and have to do a sudden change, is that you adjust and then you kind of go back to normal, right? So you have this very short amount of elasticity and then you kind of go back. 2 things have happened to me in the last 18 months that don't have the ability for me to do a short adjustment and go back, that have laid the foundation for what I will be doing for the rest of my life. And it's not set, right? I have still a long time to go. One was my husband dying. Now that's an event that's really short, right, guys? But it turns out that I thought, I'm an engineer, I'm a, you know, A-type personality, I solve problems, we just get to put a team on it, let's do this, let's make some decisions. One of the things that happened with my husband dying is that I thought that it would be done whenever it was done. You know, like, okay, he dies, and then a couple of months later, then it'll be done. I was absolutely unprepared for how long it is taking me to get comfortable with the fact that my husband died. Now, I'm more comfortable than I ever have been. And it happened, and it happened because of this second thing. So my husband dies. I didn't expect him to die. I was wholly unprepared for, even though we were apart a lot, I was wholly unprepared for not having my husband in my life, if you know what I mean. Even though there was nothing that he did that I can't do. You know, yeah, I mean, some things he did I can't do, but you know what I mean. There's nothing like,
He was your anchor. He was your anchor. He was
just there. And he needed, the things that he needed I could give him, and the things that they fit exactly into my strength point. He was very disorganized, and I was into that. And the things that I needed, he could give me. He was actually not organized. He was extremely kind of like, chill out. You know, believe it or not, Ursula, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Kind of that balance left. And it took a long time. It's taken a long time to get over. So that's one thing I'm still kind of getting my way through. The second part is this, where at the same time that I'm dealing with all of that, I'm stepping down as the chair, as the CEO of a company. I already stepped down 2 years ago, but then I took another one immediately after that, which was supposed to be a mistake, but thank God I did it, because I would have been crazed if I didn't do it. But I'm now prepared for that transition to move on. So step down as the CEO, we'll step down as the chair at the appropriate time. I'm serving on boards, and then there are 3 things that I know that I can't separate myself from. Even no matter what happened, when I didn't have time, I stayed attached onto these 3 things. One of them is the Ford Foundation, and it's because the people are great and the mission is worthy, and we're making progress. The impact is good. The second is the Mayo Clinic. I'm on the board of the Mayo Clinic, and I had to, the whole bunch of my husband. But this is a place, and coronavirus actually shows that this is a place that they do hard stuff. They do hard stuff on hard medicine that leads to solutions to broader problems. And this is one of the fundamental things I talked earlier about. People deserve good health. And the third is MIT. I'm on the board of executive committee of MIT, on the board of MIT. And this is an organization very much like Ford, very much like Mayo, that basically you come and you're served. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how much money you make. Literally, we do at MIT, you get into the school, you could pay $0. It doesn't, you have the brain, you have the potential to consume the education that's good. MIT will educate you. And these three things, I keep asking myself, they take a lot of time and they pay very little money. How about zero? A lot of time and zero money. And why am I there? Why am I interested in those things? Because I keep coming back to this need or desire, hope, interest in people ending up in life a little bit more like the way I ended up in life. Because the way I started in life, I never started in a bad home, but I started with all of the right love and care and none of the material anything. Not good health care, not good eye care, not good teeth care, nothing. Literally without the scraping of unbelievable, horrible access to horrible education only. No money whatsoever, so not good food. And fortunately, I had this angel of a person who could kind of navigate me out of this thing. Think about how many people are wasted because they don't have this angel of a person. Because not everybody can be this. Not everybody can be that way. Most of them are off working most of the day, right? My mother fortunately worked at home. She was a home care worker. Thank God, because otherwise we would have been running the streets. And so I say, if we can, I have everything that I need physically. I have everything that I need monetarily. That's for damn sure. And I have great kids, and I have great friends, and I have a lot of fun. And then you sit, and when you get to that point, you sit down in your living room and you say, okay, now what? It happens sooner. I mean, I'm sure you're there. I'm sure that you're there. You say to yourself, okay, now what? Do you keep pursuing money? A little bit. Yeah, I'm still interested in that, and I do this and that. But that's not enough to keep you going. Well, the thing that keeps you going is getting the joy that there's a possibility that there's going to be good outcomes from people in the world to make the world better. And I'm really not this highly emotional person. That was my husband for sure. I'm not this like overly altruistic person. I just think fairness. I'm this person who gets really unsettled with when it's not fair. And we have a structure today that is not fair. I mean, look at the education. People can't get out of most of the schools that we're talking about that are public schools funded by our tax dollars, that these kids go, they couldn't read when they come out. So we still have these failing factories. That can't be that hard to fix, right?
Well, and the thing is now with this, right, you think about all the kids behind closed doors at home with parents who don't have the wherewithal to help them. Don't have the equipment, right? Don't have the technologies to help them. These are our kids, Black and brown kids, who in this moment are falling even further
behind. It is. This is a problem that, and part of the thing I think a lot about, and that's why I'm not totally settled about how to do it. I always get asked, would you run for a political position? And my response is almost knee-jerk, absolutely not. And I'm pretty sure not. I don't have the right personality for that, or even probably the right intellect for that. Leaning on my brain for that. But there has to be a way that
you didn't just say you don't have the intellect.
No, I meant,
given who's in politics.
No, I think that this is part of the problem. We actually think this is a part-time fun job. Anybody can do it. No, this is an expert position. You have to know something. Unfortunately.
Ideally, but.
Yeah, unfortunately, what we come to is a position where it doesn't matter what the hell you know. Just kind of walk in. You could be a friggin' whatever. We can see what it is.
Yeah.
You could be not smart and a bad person and run the country. I'm saying, ideally, I'm pretty sure I'm very confident I can do better than a lot of the leaders that we have today.
Yes.
But I am not an expert in foreign policy, so on and so on. So I think somebody who kind of spends some time getting here should be what we, but that's not the point of this conversation. The point here is that I think that it's not necessary that we have a world where I can feel so good about my life, so comfortable with it, so just, you know, and people literally can't even think about tomorrow or the next 5 minutes. Their children are not safe. They do not have enough food. They go to schools and they're not well educated. They have no hope. And this is different than, but in addition to, this middle class America. I do understand the crunch there, and we have to fix that. But way beyond that crunch, there is still this permanent, very, very, very large underclass. Yeah. That is the vast majority of people in the world. Yeah. There are more of them than there are of anything else. And if we could just raise it a little bit, just a little bit, right? Every read and write, have a little bit of safety, that you don't have to worry about ducking before you read. You can get some food and water, and have, like, if you need glasses, you should be able to get them. You shouldn't have these solvable diseases that we can solve them in 5 minutes and people still die from them, and so on and so on and so forth. If we can get to that point, we can get some, and the best way to do that is just work hard at it. And I know it won't take 5 minutes. It's definitely not my lifetime, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth it. There's a great book I read a while ago, who I can't remember the title of it, and it was one of Bill Gates' recommendations, and it was The Angels of My something. And it was about the fact that even though we would think that the world today is worse than the worst ever, it's actually, all of the facts would show that, all of the facts and data show it's the best ever, right? People die, less people die in war, less people in poverty, less people die of communicable diseases, everything. And I think that the only reason, when you read that, the reason why it seems unreal is because everybody has the expectation, and we know that we have the potential to do even so much better. Yeah. Right. And then we can't lose the idea of the fact that, yeah, it's doing not so badly out here. I mean, comparatively, but there still is no reason why, why in the world did you go to school for 8 years and not be able to read? It's a little bit of a problem here if that's the way that things are. We should be able to do better than that. So
final thought on this, do you really, in your heart, have a sense of confidence that this time will be used?
No.
The point of the show, the point of the show is to say to people, how do you not count the hours, but make these hours count, right? So
I think that the only reason why I can have, I can tell you what I have confidence in. I have 100% confidence that I will not waste this crisis. And that could be as simple as losing weight, which I'm doing, reading more, which I'm doing, eating better, which I'm doing, whatever, engaging very broadly, which I'm doing, whatever it is that I'm doing, not wasting. I'm confident that I will not do that. I think if we can get everyone, even if it's a totally selfish thing, right? That's not criminal, not immoral or criminal, that everybody work hard to use this crisis as an opportunity to take advantage of certain things that are good. I think that the world will be better. But I am not convinced that, I said I jumped on you about listening to some of these things that you see about people, protesting about the lockdown. This is not useful use of your time. I mean, it really isn't. So, people don't go down these crazy paths of, I'm just going to scream because I want to scream. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I don't like abortion, and therefore this is a great time because all the abortion. I mean, these crazy things. Work on improving yourself, and then pick one or two things that you can work on improving somebody else. It could be only, I will not lose that opportunity, and I'm not convinced that everybody else won't. But if 30% of us, 40% of us, that's better than it was before. It's better than it was before. I think we're learning a lot. And I think I'll just reiterate, one of the things that I'm so happy about is that we now see all these invisible people. that you go to the store and you go, wow, that bagger, that X, that Y, that, the person who does the, the Hope garbage collection guys around here, all of these people. Even when you see somebody who's on the street, panhandling or begging, you realize that person is struggling because they have no place to go. You realize that they can't shelter. So you basically say, oh my God, look at that person, unprotected. And you think about it from your perspective, right? Oh my God, you don't want to, but then you think about it from their perspective. Oh my goodness. I think this shines a light on a whole bunch of things that we had conveniently trained ourselves to not even look at. And I hope that we keep these memories in our head for a while and do something about them. It's the first time that we've had it this way, where literally we've drawn the line. Yeah. That state, I hate that state. Because screw that state. I mean, everybody can die in that. Literally, some of the discourse is like, what the?
Right, and that's the fear that's the example, right? That's the example, and that for younger people, that this.
But these younger people,
leadership.
These younger people can hear two sides of the story if we are willing to engage them and tell them the other side. Yeah. So if we sit down and let this side of the story float with no back talk, then shame on us. Because this is part of the thing that gets me fun. We actually can do something. We can talk up. We can literally go to a school. We can do something here. And we should be doing something. Because we all say, look what the government is doing. I would say this to my sister, okay, I hope, we shouldn't bail out this industry. I said, we shouldn't bail out the airlines. I was talking to somebody the other day, said, shouldn't bail out that. I said, let me give you a hint. We should bail. I don't know if we're going to bail out the airlines, right. But I can tell you the outcome if we don't have an airline. Right. In addition to the fact that the people who are at the leadership of United and all these people, they won't have a job. That's people we hate. There's all the baggage handlers, all those people are unemployed, the mechanics, the supply chain. So we're saying that we shouldn't bail them out. Maybe we shouldn't. But wishing bad on these people, this is what we've gotten into. Like, it's like us against them. No. We need a strong airline industry. We need a friggin' strong Boeing. We need a strong, all these guys. Now, we shouldn't be able to hand them things but to wish poorly on this, I don't think that we understand that citizens that are our neighbors work for these guys. And unless we have a way to replace this work thing, I don't understand why we shouldn't be pushing hard for the corrections to be put in place so that we can have a strong industry versus they deserve to. No, I tell you, most of the people who are in Delta, I fly them all the time, particularly the flight, they're great. They're great. Trust me, they don't know a damn thing about the structure of the company. They just do a great job every day. Yeah. And that's most people.
Hopefully, I mean, the greatest hope is that in our apartness, in our separateness at this moment, we gain a much better understanding for the fact that the bottom line is we're in it together. We're in it together or we fall apart.
Yeah.
Right.
And that we have, particularly the people who this is going to generally hit, that we have a lot more graces than most people. That is something, that's where my mother was so graceful in her raising me a lot more. My mother always knew that wherever we were, there was somebody right behind us and that they would do it. So we got to help them. We are sitting today, I am in a place of, I don't have to worry about a goddamn thing, right? And I have a job. I have therefore a significant amount more responsibility to help, not just give money, serve, speak, rally, risk than other people do. And I think that that's what everybody has to do. And it's not impossible. Small actions make a huge difference here. They make a huge difference here. And we should just make sure that we don't forget that.